Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mentor Nation podcast. It's your host, none other than John Abbas here, and I'm just so excited to bring you a really incredible guest today that is going to hit you with so much value, so much wisdom. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, do me a favor, please hit that subscribe button so you not only get notified when a new episode releases, but also if there's ever an important announcement or if I do a solo episode, or if anything important happens, you'll be the first to get notified. So that brings me to today's guest. I am very excited. He is a very seasoned entrepreneur. He's built many, many large businesses over the years, but his current focus is what has me ultra excited to have him on the show. Bill Faeth is the founder of buildstrwealth.com. He's probably one of the biggest authorities in the country on how to create real wealth by investing in short-term rental properties that you list on VRBO, Airbnb, or your own website. He owns a multi-million-dollar short-term rental portfolio of his own, and he runs it remotely while traveling all over the world with his family. And he manages this portfolio in less than 10 hours per week. And so I'm very excited because he shares in this episode just exactly how he did it, but more importantly, the exact steps that you can take if you want to start building a portfolio of your own. He talks about the best markets to invest in around the country, how to get the money, even if you don't have a lot of money of your own, what to look at, and how to get it all set up. I'm very excited because me and my wife, we bought our first short-term rental in Gulf Shores, Alabama last year. And we're planning on purchasing another this year in Gatlinburg. And, you know, to me personally, being an entrepreneur, it's just like my line of thinking when I first got into this is how cool would it be to be able to buy dream properties around the country that you can stay at whenever you want. And then the rest of the time when you're not there, you can rent them out and just make money, have the property pay for itself, and you have little awesome destinations all over. So this is just a super fun episode packed with so much value. So get out your pen and paper, enjoy, and please help me welcome Bill Faeth to the show. All right, Bill, welcome to the Mentor Nation podcast, brother. I'm excited to have you on and talk some shop today.
I'm excited as well. Thanks for having me. Let's get going. Let's talk about some short-term rental investing.
Let's do it. So you took the words right out of my mouth. Obviously I wanted to talk a little bit about getting started in short-term rentals. But I want to get some insight from you, why you chose that over investing in other forms of real estate. And most importantly, what I really feel like a lot of the audience wants to hear is just, how you've been able to build a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio while traveling the world with your family. Every time I get on Facebook, you're traveling and staying in one of your properties on the beach or lake house. And it's just really incredible to see. And for the people listening in today, Bill Faeth is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest authorities in the country on how to start, manage, and scale short-term rental real estate, like a short-term rental real estate company. He's the founder of strwealth.com, and he is a highly successful entrepreneur and has been for many, many years. And so, Bill, before we get started talking about all things STR, I just wanted to see if you could share a little bit about, your background, your story, and just how you landed on this to create wealth for you and your family.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, John. I mean, I might have to send you a check or put you on the Christmas card list for that great intro. But I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have an addiction to building small businesses. I'm not a fan, just personally, of big businesses. It doesn't mean I hate Apple and Nike. I love those companies, But I don't want to own big. I've owned a couple of them. I built 3 businesses to over $50 million. And I don't want thousands of employees. I like building stuff. So there's a reason I've done 27 startups. People would think that I'm crazy. I'm 47 years old. I started when I was 17, 27 startups. I currently own 4 right now. I bootstrapped every one of them. I have had many partners along the way, and I've had tremendous mentors. One most importantly, a gentleman named Reginald Booth, who was the second franchisee in Pizza Hut in 1968. And he was about 30 years older than me. And he pretty much taught me everything that my mother didn't teach me about business. Because look, I was a college dropout. I mean, I was a 3rd ranked golfer coming out of high school in the world. I had full rides to anywhere I wanted to go. I went to UCLA. I was there for 4 months. I hated college, even though I was a straight A student coming out of high school. And I dropped out to turn professional. And, I was done playing in 4 or 5 years. And you know what happens if you retire of playing golf at the age of like 26, you weren't really that good, believe me. So kind of what happened with me is and I don't know if you remember this, John, because I'm probably one of your few guests that we live relatively close to each other. In 2009, right before Bernie Madoff, there was a big Ponzi scheme in the city that I lived in, Nashville. It was Michael Park, the Park Capital Management Ponzi scheme. I lost my entire life savings and my mother's life savings in that Ponzi scheme. I played golf with that SOB 4 or 5 days a week at the Governor's Club. And the thing that really, and you and I were talking a little bit about investing in crypto and that type of stuff before we started recording.
Yep.
Since then, I've never invested into the stock market. It's kind of like I would imagine if your spouse cheats on you, or a female that gets raped or something like that. That's the way that I felt, and I will never go back to it. And I'll probably lose a lot of money. So I've chosen to invest in myself. And I've been in long-term real estate. I bought and sold condos. I've flipped a little bit, all that type of stuff. And in 2015, I saw short-term rentals, and Nashville was blowing up, at that time, right? And I saw what everybody was doing with condos, but the interesting thing about short-term rentals is I never once invested into STR in Nashville, because from like day one, and even through today, it's been the most volatile market for regulations. So like one of the first tips I'm going to give everybody, all newbies that are going in to start their first STR, or if you've done 1, 2, or 3 and you're looking to penetrate into a new market, like I've expanded across the country, the first thing you have to do is not only just check the local regulation, and don't just take some clerk at the county office telling you what it is, see it documented, but then you need to go and look at the city council, the alderman, whatever is controlling those regulations, and look back 2 to 3 years and see how volatile the market is. How many bills have been presented, even if they haven't passed, because that's going to really give you the feeling of what's happening with STR. So I've steered clear of Nashville. I've never done STR here.
Gotcha.
I look at STR as really simple. I was fortunate enough that I had enough cash to where I could buy my first place. And we'll get into later of how you can start with no money. And I'm not talking about a get rich quick scheme, but if you don't have 20%, if you don't have $100,000 to put down on a $500,000 property, or $70,000 to put down on a $300,000 property, there's ways to be able to get into it. But my first property, John, I think I put $98,000 down on my first property, and now I own 8. I'm closing on another one in Gulf Shores on Friday, and I'm building $1 million property on the beach as well, and I've never had to spend another penny. No mortgage payments have come out of my pocket. I've never had to take out of my savings, out of my investment accounts. I've never had to use my personal funds to make another down payment. And it's because my guests are the ones that are making those payments for me. You don't get that with long-term rentals in real estate, whether it's commercial or residential. People go in and say, I'm going to buy this, $300,000 townhome, or I'm going to buy a $500,000 or $600,000, 10,000 square foot warehouse building. And you know what? It's awesome. I'm going to get cash flow of $300 or $400 a month. I'm going to be charging $2,000. That's just a completely different mindset to go into the short-term rental space, to where you're getting 3, 4, 5, 7 times what LTR does. So that's kind of when I found that. I had a friend of mine that had kind of was getting into it in Manhattan. And I think I shared with you, I helped him build Short-Term Rental University. And that's kind of what opened my eyes to it. And that's why I've been in it heavily. And that's my retirement plan. I mean, I've got cash, but I don't invest in the stock market. So I've got to get my returns, and I'm very conservative. I'm not a guy that would be in crypto or doing, I see everybody. It's funny. 2020 was the year of the day trader, right? People have no experience in stock and they're doing day trading. That's just not me.
That's right.
I'm uber aggressive in business, uber aggressive in penetration and pivoting and sales and all those things. So I think speed is a critical component to success in entrepreneurship, but I'm very conservative in investing.
That's awesome. I heard a quote last week that just reminds me of why what you say is so powerful and fundamental. And it was this girl that made this post, and she said, I I'm so tired of seeing myself and others give 50% to everything and 100% to nothing.
Yep.
And, you make a great point. You stay away from all of these things that people are just putting little bits here, but you've mastered your little world, because we have a lot to unpack from what you just shared. I mean, you've built this huge, gigantic portfolio. So the first question that I had is, you mentioned that you stay away from like Nashville, right? Big cities, volatile markets. So let's talk about, like, for somebody listening that's like, okay, I would love to own my first short-term rental, because, me personally, I have one, and it's
Right.
in Gulf Shores. It's right on the beach. I get inquiries every single day. I'm not doing anything crazy, but it's awesome to see, that we've got $30,000 on the books right out of the gate. So what markets are prime? Like, would you look into if you were starting all over? Like, what markets do you focus on right now, knowing what you know?
If I was starting I mean, it's kind of hard because you don't know what you don't know, and everything's going to inflect my mindset. But I guess I'll answer that question by sharing with you what I believe are the top three markets today.
Okay.
Number one is the Gatlinburg. It's really the Smoky Mountains, if you will, the northwest Georgia, the Gatlinburg, Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, even over into North Carolina, not all the way to Asheville, but there's kind of this 50-mile trade radius that is one of the only true 12-month markets. So like
Wow.
in Gulf Shores, which is number two, is about a 10-month market, right? So January and February, I still do not do snowbird stuff down there. I make more money by doing my individual reservations. Everybody believes they need to have snowbirds. So, and when I say a 10 or a 12-month market, the thing about Gatlinburg, it's on peak. It's a 12-month peak market. Gulf Shores, you got a 10-month market,
Yep.
which is like 50% better than having a 5-month market, which is what most places are. So then you have the ultra peak market in Gulf Shores, or a beach, or Destin, or Sanibel Island, or any of these places, and ski resorts, like Teton Village and Jackson Hole and Aspen and that type of stuff. And then you go to the West Coast, and I'm a California native. I'm a born again redneck for 18 years in Nashville, but I left California because it was very unfriendly for me to be an entrepreneur there in the early 2000s.
Yep.
And I love Palm Springs and Joshua Tree. Now, I want to qualify what I said earlier with regulations. I use the term Palm Springs because most everybody that's watching this, unless you're a golfer like me, does not know what La Quinta is. La Quinta is a suburb of Palm Springs, and it's a big one. You don't want to be in Palm Springs because the regulations suck, like they do here in Nashville, but you do want to be in La Quinta. And then if you drive a few miles away, 20, 30, 40 miles, Joshua Tree is incredible. The problem that people see, John, is all three of those markets, they look at them and they say, oh, it's saturated. I can't go in there. There's too much. Well, I'm going to tell you, if you drive up and down any city over 30,000 people in this country and you find a McDonald's, what the hell is right around McDonald's? Taco Bell, Burger King, Pizza Hut, every place else. It's saturated, but that's what draws the people there.
That's right.
So I only invest in what other people think of as saturated markets. Those are probably the three most saturated right now because they're the three fastest growing. Nashville is still a really good market. I just stay away from it because of the regulation. So if I was starting today, barrier to entry is difficult in those markets. You've got to be all cash or pre-approved. Mm-hmm. And legit letters from the bank pre-approved, and you need to have the best agents working for you in that market and a relationship, or you got to following Zillow and Redfin, you're not going to be able to penetrate those markets. The stuff's gone by the time you call an agent, you actually sign a contract with them, and they start working with you. So number one for me, purely from an investment standpoint, is Gatlinburg. Number two is Gulf Shores. That's why I'm putting $1.4 million in the next 3 weeks into Gulf Shores, because I know the market and I know how sound it is. This is not just talking about ADR and annual rental income. This is also the cost to enter. So that's one thing that you really need to look is your cost to enter and then your ongoing carrying costs, right? So a lot of people think I'm going to 30A. It's, Rosemary Beach, seaside, watercolor, right between Panama City and Destin. And you know what? I love to vacation there. I love it a lot better than Gulf Shores too. It's really cool, right? I want to be where Luke Bryan goes. Luke Bryan doesn't go to Gulf Shores. Luke Bryan goes, to watercolor. But here's the problem.
Right.
I'm building a $900,000 home. Tier 2, for those of you looking to invest in the beach, Tier 2 is where you get the best bang for your buck. That means beach is right here. There's one street, and then here is my house. And I have unobstructed Gulf views. $900,000 budget, 6-bedroom, 4-bath, 2,800 square feet with a pool.
Wow.
I take that out of Gulf Shores and I plop it down in 30A, and that $900,000 investment is 2.2 to 2.5 million. So we're talking 1.5 times more expensive, but the rental income only increases in the 30A by 25 to 30%. Does that make sense?
This is gold right here. Like, these are the things that people need to think about. This is why you're the man, Bill. This is why you're the man.
I wouldn't call me the man. I've made plenty of mistakes. And one thing that I do want to let everybody know is a couple of things. One, you will get blasted once you start searching on Facebook for Airbnb groups and all this different type of stuff. I am not a proponent of rental arbitrage. And there are so many, just like in any other business, John, the get rich quick schemes. Hey, do my 5-day course for $1,000, and I'm going to teach you how to, get 17 units with no money down and all that type of stuff. There is so much risk in rental arbitrage. I believe you have 3 ways to go to start in this business. The one that I've talked about, where I'm investing, and you did, you're buying an asset, right? But you got to have cash and credit to be able to do that. So if you don't have cash and credit, or if you only have one of the two, then I would tell you to look at co-hosting first. And co-hosting means you literally just grab this little thing right here, and you log into Airbnb, and you go to the market that you want to go into, and you start looking at places that you believe could be performing better. Their pictures are dark. Their pictures suck. Their descriptions aren't good. They're only on Airbnb. You can't find them on VRBO. They don't have a direct booking site. You send them a message, they respond in 3 days versus 3 minutes. You look at the pricing, and you go to airdna.co and research that market and see what competitive pricing is for 4-bedroom, 3 baths on the beach, 2 streets off the beach. You do a little bit of research, then you go to those underserved properties and introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm Bill, John. I see that you have a place in the beach club in Gulf Shores, and I see you have a lot of open dates during, and I know you're booked, but you have a lot of open dates during the summer, and you're underpriced by like $100 a night compared to what everybody else is getting. By the way, here's the free report. Let me help you, John. I don't want it, no strings. And then you're like, well, you need to do this. Here's the 7 things, John, you need to do to be able to increase your ADR by $50, $100 a night. Well, Bill, that's great, but that sounds like a lot of work. Well, John, I can do that for you. And here's my line, earmuffs for everybody that's out there. John, I'm so fucking confident that you will never want to do this on your own or hire a property management company. I'm going to do it for you for free for 30 days. And then you go in and you prove your worth, and you show them what you can do over 30 days. No commission, no back end, nothing, just 100% pure gold of your skills. And that's how you acquire a contract. And I just did that and got that here in Franklin, my first property that I'm managing. So I've actually pivoted into management as well, but very few non-public stuff. And I got a property through a mutual friend that just called me that now I'm renting, and it's literally 90% booked for the next 7 months.
Man, that's awesome. So real quick, for those that don't understand what rental arbitrage is and why you want to avoid it, can you explain a little bit about what that is to everybody?
Yeah. And I'll just let you know, everybody that's gone out of business and bankrupt during COVID, and everybody that you see that says COVID's crushed us, they were in, pretty much most of them were in the arbitrage business. So they went to, I'm just going to use downtown Nashville because that's the market that got crushed. Probably number 2 crushed market in the country behind Manhattan. And then we would put Los Angeles. So people, they go in and they find an apartment complex, they find a condo building. And as people, when COVID started and they started exiting, and going to, rural areas, they come in and they say, well, and even before this, but they go in and they say, John, you're Mr. Property Manager. I see that you have some vacancies. You charge $1,500 a month. I'd love to come in and rent them. By the way, I might even give you $1,700, maybe even $2,000 if you'll give me 2 months free. And I'll guarantee your rent. I'll do a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year contract. Then they go into that 2-bedroom apartment and they spend $7,000 to $12,000 to furnish it, design it, do all that type of stuff. And a lot of people will go in and just say, John, I'll pay the $1,500 and here's my $1,500 deposit. So you're in $3,000, then another $7,000 to $10,000. So you're still spending $7,000, $10,000, $12,000, $13,000 up front. But now you're locked into this long-term contract and you're trying to Airbnb it. You're trying to short-term rental it. The fundamental problem here is John owns that asset. You and me, as the arbitrage guys, don't own that asset.
That's right.
So when the shit hits the fan, like it did for every urban area around the world, you can't get out of your 1, 2, 3 year lease. You're on the hook for that rent. Most people that get into this, they're being trained by these schemes that are out there to go do rent to own with longer term contracts and not even invest the money up front. Because look, the guys that are selling their pitches, hey John, I can get you into short-term rentals for like no money. Just go borrow $2,000, from mom and dad, and we'll get you into this. But you're on the hook for the lease, and they're trying to teach them how to scale to like 10 properties in 30 days.
Yep.
So you go and the whole scheme behind this part is, John, if you can go get 10 properties in 30 days, you're going to be able to do that before it gets reported to the credit bureaus. So that way you can maintain your DTI and be able to qualify for all 10. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yep.
Fucking scam. Sorry, excuse my language.
No. This is an explicit podcast. So I'm glad you're sharing that, because that's these are the things that are important, because I'm the same way as you. I believe that there's nothing better in the world than owning a real asset, doing the things right, building a foundation, and scaling it through just doing the right things. So I want to pivot this just a little bit into because I had some questions from some people and I wanted to go kind of through it. So let's go back to property number one. You shared the first two things, what you would do if you were just starting off. If you had the money, you buy your first one, you covered the markets. If you didn't have the money, you would start. And obviously we'll talk at the end of this, because somebody might be listening like, well, I'd love to co-host with people, but how do I learn how to do that? Well, you just happen to have the platform for that. So we're going to talk about where they can get educated on how to just be a badass host, whether they own their own property or they're co-hosting with somebody else. Was there a third thing that you were going to mention before I kind of took you off track there?
Yeah, it's the same thing that you and I know as marketers and business people that a lot of people miss. It's you have to define your ideal buyer. You have to build out a buyer persona. Too many people go in and they're looking at market and they're looking at how much revenue they can generate on an annual basis, and they don't select their property type or size or location based on who they want to sell to, who they want to attract as guests. And then once you actually acquire that property, then it goes into the furnishings and the designs. I'll give you a real quick example. The house I'm closing on Friday down in Gulf Shores, John, it's small for me. It's a 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath.
Yep.
I'm typically investing into the $400,000 to $900,000 range, 4 threes up to much larger properties than that. So it was really interesting. Most people that are going into a property like that on the beach are saying, okay, well, how many bunk beds can I put in here? And can I put a day bed and a trundle? How do I take a 6-person occupancy and get that up to like 10 or 12? Well, my wife and my wife's my designer, we're thinking the exact opposite. So I believe zig and zag. When everybody's going this way, I'm going differently.
Yep.
So we're refurnishing the place and we're taking the 2 queen. It's a dual master suite with en suites, which is awesome. But one of the fundamental mistakes that the current owner has that built the properties, you'll probably know, it's a guy named Shaw. He owns the Hangout, is he has literally queen beds. So I don't know about you and your wife, but I'm a big dude. And you know what? When I'm going someplace, I need a nice big king bed. And having kings in a master, folks, will increase your ADR, your average daily rate, by $45 to $55, sometimes $65 a night, just from having a queen to a king in the master. So I'm doing 2 kings. I'm leaving the set of bunk beds in the 3rd room. I went Kohl's online of all places, $600 for a Miss Pac-Man, like the sit down game to put right in this window nook, perfect for the kids. And then I mark it and we're redesigning it. My wife's, I don't remember exactly what she's calling it, but it's kind of a Palm Springs, surf, retro chic, type of design. And the bedrooms are going to be spa-like. So what I'm trying to attract is a couple that wants to stay there, or 2 couples with 2 kids or less that want to share. John, you want to bring your kids? I've got 2 kids. We'll put them in the bunk rooms. Me and my wife will take one master. You take the other master. And that's what the language is. That's what the marketing is. That's what the design is, the furniture is, all going after my ideal buyer. I am not interested in cramming 10 or 12 people and having John with 5 kids and me with 4 kids, just slamming them all in there so they can split the fees. Second thing is then when I go after that type of buyer, I can raise my average daily rate. Does that make sense? So,
yeah. Now you do this before you buy a property, or like when you decide on what market you want to be in, is that when you start to create that avatar, or do
I have the
you?
avatar concept when I'm looking in market, and then
Okay.
I really define it once I acquire property. Because look, at the end of the day, I'm looking for a deal on the real estate first.
Okay.
Because just like you would, and we're looking, appreciation is the deal up front. Really, when you purchase a property, that's where you're making your money.
That's
Right.
right.
So and I'm always 100% transparent. This 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath, John, I close on Friday. I listed last week once everything has been cleared from all of contingencies are done, approved by the bank, got my cash, all that type of stuff. I've got 7 reservations in 4 days, totaling about $22,000 in bookings. And here's the key. I don't know when you're going to air this, but it's already under contract for me to sell. I'm not holding on to this property because the market's so hot. I'm paying $535. I'm meeting my buyer down there the day I close next Friday. On Saturday, he's coming to look at the property. I have an LOI already, and we're signing a contract for $625. And I'm putting my wife has a $10,000 budget to redesign the entire property.
That's the real arbitrage right there.
That's because I could hold it, and there's no question I'll do 35 to 40,000 through the summer, but I don't want to take the risk on the market, right? The market's at an all-time high. So here's what I'm doing is I'm going to generate that extra $75,000 in cash, 1031. That's 4 numbers that anybody in this business, everybody needs to know, 1031 exchange.
Yep.
And then I'm going to buy another property with that, either my dream property, which I'm honing in on right here, Montana, or another investment property in Gatlinburg or in Gulf Shores, because that's how I move up. I didn't start with $900,000 properties. I started with $200,000 properties. Just like if you watch Flipper Flop,
Yep.
and if you know who those guys are on HGTV, I can't remember Tariq and whatever the girl's name is. They didn't start doing $1 million properties. It took them like 4 or 5 years. They were buying $400,000,
That's right.
$500,000 shitty properties in Lakewood and Reseda and that type of stuff. Now they're doing the Newport Beach $1-2 million places. So start small and let your guests pay for your rent, let your guests do your cash flow, and then invest into appreciating markets. And all of those top 3, John, are appreciating markets. So really, I kind of go back to the ideal buyer, the buyer persona, which is a fictional representation of your ideal buyer. And here's what I want people to know. If you have an intimate relationship with your guest, and you create this buyer persona. So I know mine, the decision maker is not me, it's my wife. And probably in your household, your wife is probably the one that determines where you're going on vacation, right? So 35 to 50 years old, probably lives in the suburbs, 2.3 kids, drives a Tesla, loves wine, loves golf, all the finer things in life. That's who my buyer is. And it's a completely different way to market, photo, setup, furnish than it would be if I'm going for kind of middle income with multiple families into this same property.
So and the thing that I admire most about you and your wife is the fact that you do all this, you run this entire business remotely, that's the dream, right? Like we are entering an age, the gig economy, where people want to work, run businesses, build things remotely. And so I want to backtrack. So let's say you've identified a market. Let's say that you have not been in before. Let's say you choose Montana, for example. Yep. How do you find the right realtor to start off with? What's kind of your first, let's just go back to the beginning. You've identified Montana, some city, Big Sky or something in Montana. And you're like, you know what? Okay. So how do you identify, we've got the financing worked out and how people can start to get the money co-hosting, but how do you find a realtor?
So the first thing that I do is I go there because I only invest in properties and locations that I love. So I took my family to Yellowstone last June. That's when I fell in love with it. So just because you mentioned, I'm looking Bozeman down to West Yellowstone, kind of that whole west side of Yellowstone.
Got it.
So I look on Zillow, Redfin, MLS, Realtor.com. I'm looking there to get to where I can educate myself on the types of properties. And then the second step is I'm looking at the regulations. Like my dream was to be in West Yellowstone. STR is it's impossible to get a permit there. So that just scratch that one off, right? So I have identified, and I haven't purchased there, so I've got my eye on some properties. So then I go to Facebook, and I'm going to like my Build Short-Term Rental Wealth group that's got 2,500 savvy investors in it, or I'm going to other Facebook groups and I'm asking who owns or hosts in Bozeman, in Big Sky, in Livingston, whatever. And by the way, do you have a rock star real estate agent? And if they say yes, that's great. Then I ask for a link or who do they work for? Then I go to the website and I look at their profile. Then I go to LinkedIn and I look at their profile. Then I go to Instagram and then I go to Facebook. And I have one major contingency, and this is where I think a lot of people in our world make a mistake. They use a real estate agent that does not own STRs on their own.
That's exactly right.
I will never, ever use a real estate agent that does not own and host their own STRs, because then they don't know what they're looking for in a property when they're evaluating them to show you something. They don't know the regulations. They don't know the ADR. They don't know the value. They have no clue about your business model. And this is a business. It's not just a second home type of a deal.
That's exactly right. Love it. Okay. So that's how you find the realtor. So you find a property, you love it. What are some things that people need to be thinking about? Like, let's say that you find the property and you're ready to close on it. You find the realtor, it's the one. Are there some numbers that you run beforehand, or do you just do the same thing? Do you look at the average daily rate? Like, well, that actually brings me to the software. You mentioned it earlier. Can you explain to everybody what AirDNA is and why? And so many people I know, they don't even know what that is or how it works. So can you explain how that is like the freaking home run, like just the advantage?
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to give a disclaimer. So I have no affiliation with AirDNA. I pay for it just like everybody else does. I have to pay $99 per market. That's not the entire company. That's a market. So when I'm looking in Montana at Bozeman and Livingston and West Yellowstone, that's 3 markets that I have to pay for. And it's $99 a month. It's not cheap. So I can walk you through my whole process. But here's the and I don't think John has a relationship with this. There's like no affiliate links here. I just want you to understand.
Yeah.
I absolutely will not buy a property without using AirDNA for research. And if you guys watch Shark Tank, I'm going to put on my Mr. Wonderful hat, or, turn it around. I'm bald now, right? I forbid you from buying a property without using AirDNA, because you will make a mistake, because you're not going to know that market as well as all the research that AirDNA has, pulling numbers from VRBO and Airbnb. So it's funny that you mentioned this, and you probably don't even know this, but I actually have a training on AirDNA and how to evaluate properties before you purchase. And one of the first steps is once I find that market, before I even really go to Zillow, but I didn't want to convolute this, I'm looking at what I desire. So like in Montana, I'm looking for a much bigger property than I normally would, more acreage. I'm not going to go buy a 0 lot line property in Montana like I would at the beach. So I'm looking at like minimum 5 acres, 5 to 20 acres is what I'm looking for. I'm searching for views, of the mountains or of water, all these things that you can type in that become an amenity in Airbnb and VRBO as well, right? So I'm correlating all of those things that I can extract out of AirDNA. Like you said, ADR, annual revenue, competition. But one of the cool things is AirDNA lets you separate the numbers, the data, the financials by percentage. So if you feel that you're going to be an average host, you can look at the data for the 50th percentile on ADR, avenue revenue. So, I mean, I historically, I'm about 125 to 130%. So I way outperform what AirDNA tells me. So I max it out at like 90, 95%. I'll still check 50% and 75 to see what's going on there. But then you can click through to the listings on both Airbnb and VRBO. So you can see how good are their pictures, how good is their view really, what amenities do they have, how's the decor, all that type of stuff. It's this fundamental research to where you're building a pro forma. And then I take a spreadsheet and I take the top 3 to 5 competitors against what my goals were, and then I build out a pro forma. Then I go one step farther that's really important. I look at the age of the house, and I look at home warranty costs, because of the fact that and one of the reasons I just sold a $100,000 a year revenue generating property in Gulf Shores is because it was a 17-year-old house. Now I'm building one that's gold fortified. So I'm going to mitigate my expenses. So now I'm building out a budget, cleaning costs, carrying costs, interest, insurance, utilities, Wi-Fi, all that type of stuff, and comparing that to what my forecast is off my AirDNA research for revenue. So that way now I can see what my net income is going to be. And lo and behold, I'm going to give you a little secret, John. Imagine when you show that to a banker when you're trying to get qualified, as opposed to just walking in and say, hey, John, Mr. Banker, I need a loan for this ranch I want to buy in Montana. So I'm preparing for my financials and my qualifying the same time I'm building out my pro forma. And I'm always put a contingency to I suck down revenue by 10% and increase expenses by 10%. So I'm giving myself a 20% delta, for error on judgment.
Gotcha. Now, is there a sweet spot? And this could totally change by market, but you own in several different markets. Is there a sweet spot that you found for number of bedrooms, bathrooms, size of a property that to where if it just gets any bigger, it's just diminishing returns?
100%. And, I'll use the Gatlinburg market. I don't own there, but I've been researching there, finding the perfect spot for, about 6.5 months. And I have a lot of friends and students that own there. 2 bedroom, 2 bath. 2 bedroom, 2 bath that you can get into for under $400,000 that can do about $80,000 in revenue, right? So then it's really like 3 or 3 bedroom, a 4 bedroom becomes no man's land at that point. It still does well because the market's so strong, but when you want to maximize profit, you really need to go from like a 2 to a 5 bedroom with a game room or up into a 6 bedroom, because that's kind of just the way the people come into that market, right? And I look at down in Gulf Shores. I'm buying a 3.5 for $535. That property will do about $75,000 a year in revenue with my touches on it. Average AirDNA says like 55 to 60.
Yep.
The house I'm building for $900, so not quite double the cost, is going to do 185 to 200,000. So would you rather have 2 of the smaller properties and spend 1.1 million, or one of the larger properties, 6 bedroom, 4 bath with a pool, doing over double the revenue? You see what I'm saying? So that's what you really have to look at. And that's part of the research phase, leveraging and using something like AirDNA. You can't get that data anyplace else. I just want to qualify that even though you're looking and you can sort by those percentages, the 90th percentile is average. The 50th percentile really sucks. So if you've never hosted, you're going to fall somewhere in between there. And even the experienced hosts that aren't adding all the amenities and have automated messaging and doing badass welcome gifts and literally building relationships with their guests, like personal relationships, and sending them videos like I do and that type of stuff, that's what's going to move you into the 90th to 125th percentile. So if you're willing to go that far in what I call the 4 seasons hospitality versus a Holiday Inn hospitality, 75% to 90% of what you're going to see on AirDNA, Airbnb, and VRBO is Holiday Inn. I'm 4 seasons. Even if I have a shitty 20-year-old 2 bedroom, 2 bath condo that I purchased for X amount of dollars in Gatlinburg, I'm taking it to the 4 seasons level. And there's a lot of things you can do without having to invest serious amounts of money. It's about the free video that I can send to every one of my VRBO. I can text it to my Airbnb guests that check in. It's about giving, thoughtful gifts away as your welcome gift. It's about not just typing everything out, for your check-in procedures and your cleaning procedures and how to operate the remote, but paying somebody on Fiverr.com or Upwork $25 to design it and make it look nice for you, right? And then have that ready. There's a lot of things that we can do to elevate our hosting game that really doesn't cost much.
I love that. So as we get to the tail end of this, there's a few other questions that I just wanted to ask.
What do you mean tail end? I thought this was a 3-hour podcast. I'm just getting warmed up.
Oh, no. It is the tail end of chapter 1.
I'm just kidding.
So have you ever bought, or would you ever, this is what I did, with my property in Gulf Shores, it had been an STR for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they had fully renovated it in 2019. So we bought it practically brand new, fully renovated.
Right.
And it was great for us because it was fully furnished. Obviously, we put our own design touches in there. And then it came with a book of business already. Do you always like going built from scratch, or like, do you buy or some of your short-term rentals, were they already short-term rentals? Like, what's kind of your philosophy on that? Or does it not matter either way?
I think the first thing that you have to do, and this, I'm not going to get into the Tony Robbins stuff, and I know a lot of people think that it's corny, but you have to determine why you're buying, and I think from our conversations that we've had previously, you got into it and you bought because you want the place and to take your family, but also you want it to pay for itself. There's no question, and you're a very savvy investor. That's not just 100% financially driven decision. If it was, you would have made a better investment than what you did. And I'm not saying it's bad. It serves your why, right? So I look at 3 buckets. Somebody buys a place for vacation, lake house, beach house, mountain, whatever. And then they decide, I'm going to rent it just to try to offset some of the costs. Then the second part is that it's like 50-50. Hey, let's buy this. We'll STR it to pay for everything. Maybe we'll make a few bucks and we'll use it for vacation. That's kind of the second bucket. And then the third bucket is the financially driven, 100% investment, financially driven decision. You have to make that decision first before you go and make an investment. I have all 3 of those, John, in my portfolio. Now, my why, I only invest into properties that I'm going to hold, like this smaller one I'm not going to hold in Gulf Shores, that I'm going to hold because I'm 12 years away from retirement, whatever that means. It's just a goal because I doubt I'll ever retire. But when I'm 60 and my girls are both out of high school, my wife and I will sell our house here. That's about 1.3 million currently. Hopefully it's 1.5, cash out. And we're just going to buy a townhome here. And then we're going to travel to our properties. That's why I'm rebuilding. So I don't want anybody to misconstrue. Gulf Shores property that I'm building, first time I've ever built an STR ever. And that's like mine and her dream home that we're building exactly the way that we want it with the views that we want. And then we'll just, fortunately enough, over the next, hopefully year over year for the next 12 years, do close to $200,000 a year in revenue there. Montana, dream home. I have a house at Smith Lake, dream home. So that's my wilderness. That's my lake. That's my beach. Then the other ones are 100% financially driven. So Estes Park, Colorado, only was there once in 2015, never been back there. It's $1,500 to $1,700 a night, about 85% occupancy year round. You can do the math. It makes no sense for us to go there at all. So I think you have to make those decisions. I 100% buy houses that have been short-term rental previously. It doesn't make any difference to me if they have or have not been, as long as the regulations work. And I believe that I can turn that into a profitable property.
Where do you find those regulations really quick?
Typically at the local city's website, just type in, Livingston, Montana, short-term rental regulations. Almost any city you do that and you'll be able to get them. Now I'm in a place at Smith Lake, which is an hour north of Birmingham, in a free state county. There are no regulations. There's no taxes. There's no nothing there. So it's kind of the wild, wild west. And there are places like that in Wyoming and Montana and Alabama and these rural states that you would go to. Just understand, if you ever invest into an HOA or a building like where John's at, a condo, you got to read the CC&Rs, get a copy of it. When you do invest into a condo, they are required to give you a copy of the CCRs and the minutes from the previous annual meeting by law. So that, and I would interpret that with your real estate agent. And if you still don't understand it, then potentially your attorney before you make a purchase. So you got to check HOA, CCRs. And one of the problems is, John, there's still cities that have no regulation. And there's HOAs that don't have the word short-term rental inside of their CC&Rs or bylaws. That scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they can easily go and change that. So like at Smith Lake, there's an HOA in with the property that I own down there. And I think the CCRs were written, they've only written one, and bylaws were in like 2013. And it states that you can do short-term rentals. That's all it says. It's very vague. But now I have prerequisite to where if they got pissed off at me, because there's only 26 homes, I'm the only one that does it. Everybody else is just vacation homes. And I know they don't like it. But if they go and they try to change it, I have precedent to where I'm 99.9% confident that I would win a legal battle if I had to. Does that make sense? So looking at that documentation is critical.
Yeah, I want to reiterate something that you said here, because this is important. I fall into this trap. I don't want to fall into it. This is why I'm working on this. But, determining your reason why, because to me, there's a couple of types of people that are going to be listening to this podcast. There's the person that wants to buy a short-term rental and treat it as a business, or there's the person that has a business or has a career and they want to buy a short-term rental and treat it kind of like us. And I don't want to fall into the trap. I'll give you an example. I own a med spa here in Brentwood, and the guy that owns the building is a doctor. And his main business is a doctor, but his, where do I put my capital is in commercial real estate. But
Right.
he loses thousands of dollars a month. And the building that our med spa's in, I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, it's ran so poorly. It could be making so much more money. And so the reason I really want to reiterate what you're saying is because even it doesn't matter which category you fall into, you really need to take the time to educate yourself on how to maximize your property. Because even if it's just you have a main business and you want something and your reason why is just to have something to pay for itself, that doesn't excuse being ignorant, because it's just the time that it takes to learn a little bit from some of your trainings. It's like you could have your cake and eat it too, right? You could have a cash flowing property that meets your criteria, but also is a place that you can go and have fun with your family. And so I want to reiterate, because I see so many people that are category 2. They have their main business, but they want to become an investor is like a side thing, but they don't ever put any time into learning how to make their investments a business. And this is what you're talking about, the 50 percentile, the 40 percentile. That's those people that just don't care enough. And that brings me to my next point, which is, to me, it seems because there's so many of them out there and so few of you out there that treats your investments like an actual business, that it would be really easy to get into the top 5 percentile if you just gave a shit.
Stop. We don't want to tell everybody that.
Oh, sorry.
Then we're going to have all that competition.
I won't publish this.
Yeah, don't do that. You're 100% right. I mean, that's what attracted me to it. So I know we don't know each other that well, but man, I am OCD, ADD, quadruple type A. You give me every acronym as an entrepreneur you could ever imagine. I am all fucking in on everything that I do. So I learned, I consumed, I self-educated. You can see all these books behind me. Most of them are about marketing and sales and positioning and, real estate investing and all that type of stuff. I'm really freaking good at it. And I share that with people because I want to debunk a couple of myths. It is easy. 8 properties that I own, 6 under management, 2 co-hosting. So I'm not really good at math, but that's 14 properties that I'm taking messages, I'm running payments, I'm doing contracts, I'm doing all that type of stuff. And I'm going to drop the bomb right here for everybody. 5 to 7 hours a week. 5 to 7 hours a week, because I have everything. I have the technology in place that is very inexpensive in this space. I have the templates automated, the messaging, the emails, the SMS, all that type of stuff automated. There's 31 templates that everybody needs to be able to do this. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm still involved in my daughter's soccer and all that type of stuff. I don't miss a game. My wife coaches, she plays soccer, and I have 4 other businesses that I run. It's not passive income. That's one myth I want to debunk. Owning a short-term rental is not passive. Even if you hire a property management company, which 99.9% of them suck and they're just blood-sucking leeches suck your profit out of your business, you're still going to deal with them and maintenance and all the issues that go along with it. And that's coming from a guy that has kind of slowly migrated into being somewhat of a property manager as a co-host and managing property, right? But you can do this very, very efficiently. My mission is to teach everybody that's using those blood-sucking property management companies how to be self-sufficient and do this on your own and spend less than 5 to 10 minutes a day per property. That's it. You can do it. So, I mean, you look at apps. If those of you that are out there and you have like less than 5 properties, if you're just doing everything through VRBO and Airbnb, and I'm going to give you just a real quick 90-second checklist. Is this okay?
Yeah. So
number 1, you need to be on Airbnb, VRBO, and at least have a direct booking site. If you don't have a direct booking site, go to Huffy.com, HOUFY.com. Huffy.com, you get one for free. You can even take payments via PayPal with it. So your guests have no booking fees. So when you're posting to social media, don't post Airbnb and VRBO. Say, hey, get a discount, save 10 to 15% over booking on Airbnb and VRBO, and go to my Huffy website, right, and book direct. Number 2 is you got to have a channel manager. So one of the huge things for the algorithm Every one of my properties is on first page of Airbnb and VRBO. Probably 90% of them are ranked number one for the search criteria because I've automated messaging. Every time somebody sends a message, Instabook, whatever, reply goes out within 15 seconds. And
Wow.
I have automation for check-in, for my smart locks, for all that type of stuff. So I don't have to manage that manually across, multiple platforms with multiple properties. So if you have less than 3 or 5 properties, check out Your Porter for channel management or Smart BNB. Those are my 2 favorites. When you want to get into things that are a little bit more robust, I use Owner Res, but I didn't switch to that till I was like 6 properties with like 18 different listings, right? It's overkill. That's like the big one. And then Guesty. And if you get on those platforms, one, you're going to optimize better. And the last tip that I'll give you is Price Labs, which is revenue management. 99.9%, not just of short-term rental hosts, but of all business owners that are selling their own product, we underprice. Price Labs is like AirDNA, and it will go in and it will help you optimize your pricing. You set your low, you set your medium, you set your high, and then just like all the info that AirDNA has, Price Labs has all of that from VRBO, Expedia, Booking.com, Airbnb, and it prices for you. And what most people say to me is when I tell, hey, John, raise your rates by 25 to 35%, and you're like, I can't do that. And then you do it and you get it, and then you come back and you say, holy shit, you were right. Well, the same thing happens with Price Labs, and it's only $19 a month. There's less than 1% of people that host that use a revenue management tool, and it will change the game in your profitability. There's 3 of them that are out there. They're all good. Wheelhouse, Price Labs, Beyond Pricing. I'm a Price Labs guy. Once again, no affiliate link, no commission. I'm a Price Labs guy because it's the cheapest. I don't like sharing my revenue. Beyond Pricing's great, might be slightly better, but I'm not going to give them 1% on top of the monthly fee just out of principle.
Yeah, man, you said the last 5 minutes of you talking has been gold, like literally gold. You said the thing that I think everybody wants to hear that's going to be listening to this, and that's that it is possible to have a large portfolio of short-term rentals and have time freedom and to be able to do it remotely. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I'd love to cover, from how to find the best cleaner and to the softwares and to how to decorate. But this is where I want to have you give yourself a shout out for everybody listening that needs more of Bill Faeth's advice. Where can they connect with you? Where can they follow your content? Where can they access? Because I do it. I have a rental and I watch your videos. Every week I watch a couple of your videos because it's like, holy shit, I was wondering this for my short-term rental. So where can people follow your content, connect with you, and just follow everything that you're putting out in the world in the short-term rental space?
Yeah, the number one spot I would say is Build Short-Term Rental Wealth. Just remember that name, Build Short-Term Rental Wealth. The Facebook group, I've got 2,500 people in a private Facebook group. YouTube channel, putting out 2 videos every week on YouTube. Build STR Wealth is the website. There's paid programs there. I would push everybody into my Superhost library if you really want to go to that next level. It's ridiculously cost effective. It's $67 a month. I have mastermind groups as well, which you and I believe heavily in masterminds.
That's right.
And that's the sales stuff. But honestly, I'm probably guilty, and my team would tell me this, John, that I give too much content away for free because I'm not the guy that's trying to sell you into my programs. I'm the guy that's here to deliver. And I always put, the proof's in the pudding. So I'm going to give you my cell phone number. And this is my real cell phone number for everybody that watches this. It may take me months to catch up based on how many people watch this, but my cell phone number, and John knows it, it's 615-948-4569. 615-948-4569. No bullshit. Send me a text message. Don't call me because I won't answer because I won't know your number, but send me a text message and put in your first and last name and ask me a question so I can reply and potentially have dialogue with you on a specific question, and I will answer. There's no question. The other platform that I love, John, that is brand new that I'm on about 3 or 4 times a week is Clubhouse. And the thing, if you're not on Clubhouse, it's basically what's happening with John and I right here, but without video. And John and I are talking, but you get to ask questions. It's almost like a Facebook Live broadcast with no video, but in Clubhouse. but there's like 20 moderators sometimes. And I spend about 3 to 5 hours a week helping people in Clubhouse. The one thing that I want to, if we're coming down to the end, that I want to share with everybody that I believe, one of the reasons I've been able to build multiple $50 million companies, 27 startups, 18 exits, and a successful short-term rental business on the management side, the education side, and the long-term wealth building inside is because I give. And I learned that if you give, and if you're in this business, you've got to give to your hosts, or excuse me, to your guests. And if you give to your guests, I look at that if I can deposit just 1 quarter a day into my community, then I'm going to get $2 back over the next couple of weeks. Where you are either depositing into your community or you're selling to your community and you're making a withdrawal. And what happens is when you continue to withdraw and you just think about hosting as a transaction, eventually that bank account runs dry. So if you can just continue to deposit and overvalue, I've got guests that I've literally sent probably 4 or 5 messages to my guests just to check in. So one simple thing that really alleviates a lot of the pain point for a new person booking on any of these OTAs, booking.com, Expedia, is convince your cleaner and offer a 24-hour cleaning guarantee. Because think about it, we're hopefully coming out of COVID, but people are concerned about cleanliness, they're concerned about sanitation, and sometimes you walk into a hotel and it's dirty or there's something wrong with the bed or whatever, and they don't have rooms to be able to move you. So the subconscious of a traveler, whether it's leisure or business, has that same concern. So if you can give them that 24-hour guarantee, and that's something I require from my cleaners, John, I've seen that really has helped boost my ratings, my reviews, but also my bookings as well.
Now, when you say a 24-hour cleaning guarantee, you mean if they come in and if it's not perfectly clean?
Cleaners will go back and clean it immediately. Not like it's the first night's free or anything like that, but my cleaners give me a guarantee to where we will rectify the situation. Literally, if there's a fly on the window seal, my cleaners will come back in there and they'll clean it and they'll sanitize it and they'll ask you if there's anything else is there a toilet or did we miss some? Did we miss, the vegetable? That's one of my biggest pain points. And you think about in the refrigerator, you pull out that vegetable container and stuff gets down in there, wipe that out on the bottom, pull the drawer out. That's the first place I go every time I check into a place to see how good the clean. It's like when you go to a Mexican restaurant, if you go to a new one, the food's going to be good or bad based on the salsa and the chips, right?
Yes, that is exactly right. That is, that's so funny. It's like one of those things that everybody thinks about, but nobody ever talks about. That is exactly it. Bill, this has been one of the best, like in terms of wisdom and just so many things that you can use right away from one interview. I just want to thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put all the links in the show notes to just your website and your social media. I don't know. I'm still hesitant to put your cell phone in the show notes, so I won't do it, but they have
you can bleep it out if you want, but that's something that I think is really important for me because there's so many guys that are in the knowledge brokering or the educational business.
Yep.
That are they're not here to invest in their community, John.
That's right.
And
that's right.
If you get a good response to this, I'll come back and do this a round 2 or round 3 as many times as you want. But let's be transparent. It benefits me as well, right? So that's the thing. I believe in transparency. I believe in empathy. And I think you have to go all in to benefit your community. You and I both know, Gary Vaynerchuk, and we look at how much he invests. I think he's a great model for that. I've been fortunate enough to kind of have a mini relationship or have met him many times, for the last 10 or 12 years. I follow Gary to a T, and I think it's the same thing in any business. And I know you're not just talking about short-term rental stuff. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be a father, you got to be all in. This is coming from a guy that didn't have a dad growing up, right? Be all in with your kids. Doing this while you're, at a game or watching TV, that's not all in. You're not present. It's the same thing with STR. But the one thing I just want to end this with, and then I'll shut up and let you close it out.
It's all right.
You can do this successfully on your own, self-managing remotely. Don't let your mindset think that you have to be able to drive within 15 minutes to go to your property to fix the toilet. You can manage anywhere outside of that opens up the entire country or the entire globe for you to be able to make the right investment for your why. And I promise you, You don't need to buy one thing from me. It's my job to earn the right by driving value for you for free to have the ability to get into your inbox, have the ability to be able to sell you something, right? So I would tell you to go to my YouTube channel, go to the Build Short-Term Rental Wealth Facebook group, consume free content and see if it's right for you. But one thing I will promise you, you don't need to buy anything from me to be able to self-manage successfully as a host.
This is such a great interview. Thank you so much for your time on a Saturday morning, nonetheless. And I hope obviously to have you back on and have a round two at some point, but thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.